we're right about in this area right now. Here's Route 5 coming down through here. We drove up this road here to get here. And so the heart of the 17th century capital of St. Mary City was right in this area. And we at St. Mary City have been doing work here, you know, for about 50 years. We've been doing so much archaeology. We found what the buildings look like that people built to make their homes. We know what public buildings look like with the beautiful brick chapel and the first state house in Maryland. But the piece that was missing, as you know, was the fort, St. Mary's Fort. So how do we find it?
Yeah, how did you find it?
So we had some theories. We had some theories. You know, 50 years of work, we had some ideas.
You guys finally got the hang of it after 50 years?
It took a little while, you know, but we decided to do a concerted search. So in 2017, thanks to a grant from the Maryland Historical Trust, which we appreciate their support as well, it was matched by our foundation, our nonprofit wing. We hired a geophysicist who does basically uses techniques like ground penetrating radar, magnetometry.
Had you not been using that stuff before with some of the other discoveries?
We had done a little bit of that. We did some out over at the chapel, and that revealed the burials of about 300 to 400 of Maryland's founders.
Is the technology better than it was?
It's so much better. Okay. I think that's what's really cracked it for us, is the technology has evolved.
Great.
And so we were looking. This is our field right here. We were looking in this area and also over in this area. These were sort of the two sites that have been competing for a long time. And my thought was, well, if we can look below the ground.
And how, before you started looking below the ground, how did you think that those were the potential two sites?
So we've done enough work that we have a sense of where sites might be around on our landscape. And there had been some surveys that we had done back in the 90s and actually into the early 80s over in this area and also over here that had found some early 17th century artifacts. But we didn't have anything like buildings or walls of a fort, anything like that. But where we see those early artifacts, it's like, you know, there could be something. And so
I see. And you found artifacts in both places.
Exactly. So it was like, what are the two candidates that we haven't looked at a lot? Let's check these two out. And so we looked in these two spots. Our geophysicist came in 2018. He looked in a couple areas and he wasn't really finding a whole lot. It was a bit of a dud. So in September of that year, remember when the hurricane came through? Of course.
I remember that.
Yeah. He was scheduled to come down and do the ground penetrating radar part of the survey. It got canceled because it was a hurricane. And so I went away on vacation right before Thanksgiving of that year, and he came out here to do the rest of his survey, and I thought, oh, it's fine.
While you're on vacation?
I'll be away for a couple days. I'll come back. I'll catch up. First day I was away, he texts me and he says, I think you got it. And so what he was showing me...
I don't know where I read that, but I read that story and I was thinking, man, it's your whole life and you're on vacation.
I know. I've never been so happy to have a vacation interrupted.
Did you get back fast?
I sure did. I beat feet, you know. So this is what the ground penetrating radar that he found, what it's sort of... I liken it to like a CAT scan.
Wow.
And this is what really jumped out to us. That line that circles around right there.
That's like so clear.
Exactly.
This is the way it actually looks when you do it?
It sure is, yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I will say it's with the expert who can really process the data and interpret it and get the imagery to look this good.
That's incredible to see how clear it is.
It is, yeah. And so this is sort of the kind of simplified version of what he had found. And each of these dots are the remains of an individual timber, an individual post. So this is what we would call a palisade. Yeah. You know, so you've got 12 to 14 feet tall, big timber sunk in the ground side by side. And when we see a palisade is usually military. It's, you know, James Fort at Jamestown, that was a palisaded fort. A lot of the forts in the 17th, 18th century. And then we saw this, which is what we call...
that one that we're going to be competing with, the Jamestown thing, you mean?
Well, I think, yes.
Right, Jack?
Someone's coming at your walls, you can fire along your walls and really defend them.
What is this called?
It's a bastion. Yeah, and so this is what the geophysics showed, and in fact the more complex version of this map shows you just how much is going on in here. You've got the palisade line, but each of these green dots represents a post. This is parts of a building, parts of a fence, you know, any sort of thing here. And there's a lot happening here, obviously, but the stuff that really gets us excited.
There's a lot of stuff happening outside the fort.
Sure enough, yeah. This area in here, in fact, this is the road you drove in on.
Right.
These buildings that are aligned with that road, that's a 17th century road, and that dates to probably 1660. And so the fact that these buildings are aligned with that road means they're likely from that same period. But we're interested a little bit deeper, about a generation before that, with the fort.
Right.
So this is obviously not in alignment with the road, so that's a good suggestion. This area over here caught my eye. This big red blotch, that's a very deep feature. Rectangular deep feature, that says to me a cellar. And where there's a cellar, there's trash that got thrown into that cellar. So it's going to be really great to get in there and find some great stuff.
That makes sense.
And then each of these posts around here, it's sort of almost like a grid. You see, it's not like kind of ramshackle like these. That says to me a really big building.
Yeah.
You know, there's your big structural timbers on the corners, and you build your big building up there. So this is actually.
As you're explaining it, it looks perfectly makes sense to me. I was looking at it.
Awesome.
I'm glad you told me. I wouldn't have figured it out.
These shapes over here, you see how it's sort of like a circular arrangement of these posts? Right over here, right over here. The English didn't really build in circles, but native people did. And we don't have a lot of native architecture that's been identified here at St. Mary's City.
Are you talking about right here?
Yep, yeah, where the green dots are almost, and there's like a rounded rectangle. Yeah. And then this right here, that's 2 concentric circles. Wow. That's really exciting to us too, because that might be Native American buildings of some sort. We know Native peoples lived in this area for 12,000 years prior to the colonists.
This looks like Stonehenge here.
Doesn't it? Yeah, I know. That's what we need to check that out and see what that is, because that's pretty cool. Of this geophysical survey, we ended up doing some excavations in 2019 to really say, this shows us what we think is below the ground, but we need to actually go through it and see what it's there. And so we dug over here, and I'll take you over there later.
And on these, there's not, the timbers are completely disintegrated by now, right? I mean, there's nothing left.
What's left there are stains. There's stains in the soil. Basically, where that timber decays, it leaves the soil really organic.
And then he picks that up with the ground penetrating radar, the stain in the soil?
Yes.
Wow.
He's very skilled.
Very well.
It's really neat. And you can off of the geophysics, this is the conjectural drawing that we put together. What we think at this time, without doing the full excavation.
It looks a lot like the Jamestown.
Yes, it sure does. And so we've got this.
And what's the difference in time, we think?
It's about, Jamestown was 1607, and we're 1634. So
similar,
27 years.
Probably still building them the same way.
Very similar, yes. I think they learned a lot from Jamestown, like maybe don't build your fort in a swamp. And luckily they didn't do that here. We've got nice level land, we've got springs around, and so there's a beautiful location.
But the palisade, the timbers, the shape, it's all similar, right?
It is, exactly. Yeah, Jamestown's a triangle, but this is a rectangle, otherwise it's pretty much
the building materials were the same?
Precisely. And we actually know from colonial records that when the colonists landed first at St. Clement's Island, they started cutting down timbers there because they knew they were going to come somewhere and build a fort.
And what would make them move back over here from where they landed, or from, what was it about this area that you think?
So there were a couple things. They knew they were communicating with a guy named Henry Fleet, who was a fur trader who had lived in this area for a while. He spoke enough Algonquian that he could really interact and sort of act as a translator between the native peoples here, the Piscataway and the Yakomico and a lot of the other groups. And the colonists land at St. Clement's, and they sail up north on the Potomac, and they meet with a guy named Juanes, who was the paramount chief of the Piscataway. He controlled most of this territory. You might relate. And so Juanes basically says, "Don't settle here." He doesn't want an enemy, but he also doesn't want them right next to his capital. And so they talk to Fleet, and Fleet says, "I know a spot. Come south." And so they end up here, and one of the things they talk about as being a big benefit is that the land was clear. So, if you imagine settling in a dense forest and you want to grow crops, you got to knock down all those trees. The nice thing about here is that the land was clear. Now there was a native village called Yakomico here, but the colonists negotiated with the leaders of the Yakomico and actually purchased the right to settle on this bank of the river.
So the native people had cleared the area and they were utilizing it and they sold it?
Exactly. Yeah, so under the agreement they basically said, let us stay until we can harvest our crop, and then we're going to move on, because they had been getting raided by other groups coming from Pennsylvania, New York.
You can have it.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, yeah, please take this and give us something for it, and we're good to go. So we can start all the way, of course, at the beginning.
Wow. This is like such a perfect.
It is, and that's made by a native person about 4,000 years ago.
I mean, it's in great shape.
It is, yeah. That probably was someone who was unhappy to lose that. Usually you don't toss away something, you don't toss away a good tool. So that was probably a loss, as opposed to these, which were tools that were broken, probably for use. These are what we call scrapers, for removing the hair off hides. And these are two types of ceramic that were made by native peoples about 2,000 years ago. So the archaeology.
So this piece is the oldest one?
It is, yes.
And how do you test that age?
So based on the shape of the projectile point, there's been archaeology in the Chesapeake for so long that we've got really good dates on a lot of that sort of thing. Same thing with the ceramics, based on the decoration, what's included in the ceramics, we're able to date it that way. We then sort of see the introduction of the colonists with this array of ceramic vessels that were made in England. In fact, these were made on the Iberian Peninsula. These were made in England, and these are parts of small little bits of a larger vessel.
Oh, it's amazing that you can find that exactly where it came from with that little piece.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a lot of that research that really goes into this, and this one I love because we know exactly what it would have looked like. This is a sort of a globular vessel that was made
exactly
in
the same
Germany.
design.
Exactly. Yeah. This is about 1550 to 1650. So really old vessel that would have been brought over, contained some sort of foodstuff, oils.
I thought it was some kind of adult beverage.
It was probably used for that as well. You can tell by his smile, right? We've got a variety of beads made out of glass, and in this case, this one's made out of stone. And these were all made in Europe.
This one is very cool. So you see this hole right through there.
Yeah, all handmade glass. And this one here is actually a rosary bead.
Wow.
Which is kind of neat. It gets a sense of that Jesuit mission.
Where's the father?
Yeah. There he is.
Yeah. You see, I have a rosary bead here. That's good.
Yeah, had to. It's Jesuits, you know. How does it get the name Mary?
Yeah, well, I know how it goes.
Representing sort of the military conflicts. So we've got, this is all pieces of lead shot of different calibers that would have been fired from a musket.
Like what kind of time frame is that?
This is all 17th century, early 17th century.
Wow. What is this?
That is actually a fragment of a musket itself, and I've got a comparable example here to show you. This is a trigger guard. So this piece of metal guarding the trigger, that's what we've got right there. And this individual musket is from a collection, that's 1630. So we know that's very, very old.
So in the
I thought
fall,
that was a bent nail there for a second.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks
I've
like,
never
right?
seen, that's very cool.
in the winter, when I came down here with my children, Travis, this was just sticking out of the ground.
It sure was.
It was just sticking out of the ground.
Yeah.
And just since that amount of time, they've gotten it out of the ground, they excavated it, they studied it, now they know what it is. Pretty neat.
Yeah, that's gonna do some work.
That's in really good shape, yeah.
Yeah, it's remarkable. So that's iron that would have been fired. You know, and when we see a cannonball, we think this could be.
If you had two more, I would juggle.
He would. He'd be good at it.
With it.
Well, the pieces that I really wanted to show you today, these are very recent finds for us, and this is sort of the best of the best for us.
You can tell because you have the nice covering on it. It's fancier.
Absolutely. So, in this case here, we have three really important objects, and the first is the one that got us the most excited, and that's this one right here. That's a King Charles I silver shilling that was struck in the Tower of London in England. And what we know about this, what's so cool about it, is we did some research on it and revealed that there's one particular part of this coin. This is just a blown up version, same side there, showing you got the crest for the Talberts. That right there, it's the shape of a castle gate, a portcullis. That mark was in use in 1633 and 1634.
Wow.
So we've got the coin that tells us this site was constructed at the start of the Maryland colony. So that was sort of the smoking gun for us. This could really be.
That's amazing.
Our site.
That was proof that you were in the right spot at the right time.
Precisely. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That thing is so well preserved. I mean, you can read the stuff right off.
Yeah, it came out in great shape, and we have a conservator on staff who cares for all of our objects. But this one fortunately just needed a little bit of cleaning, and it was ready to go.
That's amazing. Tinkling?
Tinkling, for the sound that it makes. It actually would have been strung on a piece of leather cord, and it's copper. And when you hang a bunch of them from a piece of clothing and you move around, they sort of jangle together, make a little tinkling sound. And copper was a material that was seen as very powerful to Native people. It held a lot of great spiritual power. And so this kind of personal adornment, this was likely produced by the colonists for trade with the Native peoples.
Figure out that was it. You got some stuff in here.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. My goodness.
There's the arrowhead. Oh no, something.
No, that's
a rock.
No, that's a piece of quartz and we can tell that it's been struck. Yeah, you see how you feel that it's edge. Well, don't feel too hard because those edges are sharp.
So that's why I said it was.
Yeah.
What would you use that for?
That might be a piece of what we call that debitage. It's basically, this is an English stoneware. It's really thin, likely part of a drinking vessel. So back to our adult beverages. Yeah, this would have been like a tankard right there. What else is there? This right here, that is it. Oh, that's the ubiquitous tobacco pipe stem. So that's part of a clay tobacco pipe. It would have been yay long, little bowl at the end. They break so frequently that we find them with great regularity.
Everybody was smoking tobacco.
Exactly. Yeah, that was sort of the Maryland economy for a long time.
Yeah, that's incredible. So it looks like this is something. Just enough.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is quartz.
Maybe I should do this for a
Yeah,
minute.
really. Can you're hired. So this is quartzite, just a different stone, and you can see this is that sort of rough surface right there. That's the outside of a stone, and so this would have been knocked off and removed from a tool that someone was making. We got some more oyster shell over here.
Be that there earlier, and just wanted to, in honor of that discovery, I wanted to just issue a governor's citation today for all of the work that you're doing. Thank you for the education, Travis. It was really great. But it's dated today and signed by me, Lieutenant Governor, and Secretary of State. I'm going to present. You guys can fight over who's going to get that one, but I'm not going to you, Regina.
I better let my boss.
You better let the boss have it.
Everybody looking this way, sir? There you go. Thank you.
I think I should take off the hat. To be
That's
more
a great
respectful.
idea. There you go. Perfect.
It was just keeping my bald head from burning.
There you go. We got it.
I wanted to just take a moment and thank the governor for everything he's done for St. Mary's County and for us here. As you all well know, if you looked at the budget this year between the Higher Education Center and right across the street with St. Mary's College, over $150 million that his administration has put into St. Mary's County just for education. When we look at broadband, 98% of the children in St. Mary's County have broadband, and it's working today because of our governor. We really appreciate everything that you have done, not to mention the commitment and the $18 million that you have put in the hands of these very well-deserving people to bring our future and to show us what we have done in the past. Thank you very much, Governor. It is quite an honor to have you and work with you.
I didn't like that, but Jack, thank you very much for your leadership in Annapolis. Thank you for the kind words. I want to thank everybody, your county commissioners, the folks here in St. Mary's County, everybody at historic St. Mary's City, all of the folks that have been working so hard. I just want to thank all of you. It's a pleasure to be a small part of helping, but I know that a lot of people on the board have been raising funds, and a lot of people working hard to discover this history, and I'm just proud to be a small part of it, and so happy with the work you're doing. And Jack, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for your leadership in Annapolis. Thank you.